Senate GOP leader David Hann joins me now to talk a little bit about what we can anticipate this special session. Thanks for joining us, Senator.
Good to be here.
Let's begin with a little bit. The special session will focus just on disaster relief. Of course, at one point there were some tax relief included as well, a repeal of a sales tax. Why don't you tell us what happened behind closed doors to lead to just this decision?
Well, first of all, there was a broad agreement on everybody's part that we wanted to make sure we got the disaster relief taken care of. I think that was unanimous. Everybody agreed. We wanted to make sure we did that. We did, frankly, spend a fair amount of time in our discussions just making sure that we had to call a special session to accomplish that. It's, in terms of the cost, compared to other disaster declarations, relatively small, so we want to make sure we could do it no other way. But secondly, the governor had proposed making an exemption for one of the taxes that was passed, one of the business-to-business taxes. On our side, we felt that all the business-to-business taxes, all three of them, were deserving of consideration to be repealed. We did make that proposal. In the course of the discussion, we offered to maybe just cut that down to do one of them, and I think what we couldn't agree on is exactly how to structure the budget to make that work. It seemed to me that there was an unwillingness on the part of the Democrat majority and the governor to really look at reducing spending to accomplish that. When you have a revenue stream coming in and you're going to lose that, you have to reduce the spending to accomplish it.
Did the governor open the door, in your opinion, for expanding the agenda when he did talk about repealing the farm equipment sales tax? Is that why the GOP stepped in and said, well, let's talk about this warehouse tax
Well,
as
I think yes, because originally he'd indicated that it was going to be just disaster relief, and we had made some discussion earlier to suggest maybe we should do more, and he said no, and so fine, the governor gets to call the special session. But then he did, a week or two later, say, well, let's maybe consider this portion of it, which is only a part of one of the taxes, the sales tax on equipment repair. And he said, let's exempt just the farmers from that. And it really is hard to justify taking one group and exempting them from a tax that's going to apply to a lot bigger group. And so from our side, we thought, well, we agree, Governor, that this is a onerous tax. We agree that it is a mistake, if you will, but we agree it doesn't help the economy, and we agree that we should repeal it. But rather than make an exemption for just one sector of the people affected, let's repeal the whole thing. And that was our suggestion. We said let's repeal all three of them, the warehousing tax, telecommunication, and the third one. That total cost, if you will, is about $300 million. To do just the sales tax is about $150. We believe that that is possible to do that. If there is a will to make that decision, then we could find a way to pay for it if that's the point.
So the warehousing tax, Senator Dave Thompson did hold a news conference recently where he said he does have legislation asking to repeal that tax. Would you approve if he decides to offer it during this special session?
Well, anybody can introduce a bill. When you do a special session, typically you agree to start at a certain time and end at a certain time, and you also sign an agreement to say that we're not going to take amendments to the bill that is agreed to be brought forward. And so there will be no amendments offered. We've all agreed to that. That doesn't mean that members can't introduce any bill they want to, and so I would expect that there will be other bills introduced.
With your blessing?
Well, I don't get to decide what bills other members may or may not.
But you are the leader.
But I certainly
of your caucus.
I certainly support the repeal of that tax, and actually wrote a letter to the governor and to Senator Bach and Representative Thiessen advocating that we include that as a part of the special session agenda. So I'm certainly in favor of anybody who's calling for a repeal of that warehousing tax. I think even though it hasn't taken effect, won't take effect until April, there's no question, and I've talked to businesses that are already making decisions on the basis that they're prospectively anticipating that affecting them, and they have to plan today. And so the more that we can do to assure them that that is not going to be something that will affect them, I think that's helpful. So I support that.
So I should ask you then, if you would support potentially introducing that piece of legislation, would you also support other members of your caucus introducing pieces of legislation to repeal sales taxes that have already taken effect?
I'm not aware of any legislation that any member is going to introduce. No member has told me that they are planning to introduce any legislation, so I'm not aware of anything. I suspect there will be members who will introduce legislation. I personally am not going to introduce any legislation, but I'm sure there will be members who will.
Okay, in your opinion, what can we expect then on September 9th?
September 9th, we're scheduled to start at 10 a.m. We will, prior to that, have a working group meeting. It's a combination of the Ways and Means and the Finance Committees of the House and the Senate. They will be finalizing, if you will, or taking some testimony on the disaster bill to just get public input on that and maybe doing a little bit of fine-tuning. That bill will be put together in its final form. We will sign off on that probably the Friday before the special session begins. And we will start 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll probably recess and then come back a little bit later to take up the bill and suspend the rules and pass the bill and be done sometime in the afternoon.
So my last question for you then, Senator, is there any concern about some potential political backlash if indeed your caucus decides to deviate away from just disaster relief, given that there was this agreement?
Well, I think I don't anticipate that there will be any deviation. The majority obviously has the votes to decide what bills get taken up in a special session. I think they understand that members can introduce bills, but only the majority can agree to take up a bill. So I think it's unlikely that any bills will be taken up other than the one that we've agreed to. As far as amendments go, something like a disaster relief bill, it's very unlikely that there will be other issues that would be germane to a disaster relief bill. So I don't anticipate that we'll have much a problem with the agreement that was signed.
Okay, with those words, Senator David Hann, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time as always.
Good to be here.